Alright, this is part 2 of the video that I just got done doing. I left off talking about Luke. Luke was a physician. He wrote the book of Luke and the book of Acts and was a physician. To practice medicine, you had to be aware and understand science. Like it wasn't medicine the way we do medicine today, but you had to have an understanding of medicine. You had to be a student of science and had an understanding of science. Christians don't hate science. We don't avoid and run from science. What we hate is science practiced poorly. Like when you see someone who doesn't look at all the evidence or eliminates possibilities before they even appear. Before they even become possibilities, before they allow to present themselves. Like Richard Dawkins, there's plenty of clips where he goes, well, this can't be, obviously because of this, there can't be an explanation of heaven. So now let's look at the evidence. And he rules out any possible outcome. He rules out outcomes before he looks at the evidence. That's bad science. You let the evidence take you where it leads. You don't tell the evidence where to go. That's ridiculous. I've gone to Bible school with people who have majors that pertain to something involving some level of science. We're not afraid of science. I know you didn't say that Christians are necessarily haters of science, but you said that atheists like science and that Christians rely on magic, and that's just ridiculous. Just because we understand something scientifically, that doesn't mean that God is excluded from the equation. To assume is a flawed logic and poor theology. Just because you understand the human heart doesn't mean God wasn't involved in the human heart. So you really can't come to that conclusion simply by understanding something scientifically. You said that there are just accidents. Life has elements of chance. And I'm not going to really debate that because some Christians believe in chance and some Christians do not believe in chance. Some Christians believe that everything is predestined. Some Christians believe everything is left to whatever happens. And sometimes God gets involved. Sometimes there's Christians who believe somewhere in the middle. So I'm not going to worry about that point. I'm simply just going to say that some Christians would agree with you that there is simply chance, and there's going to be some who don't. And that's okay. We don't have to agree on everything, on every point. You said this may not seem comforting. This may not seem comforting, but here is another way to look at it. Your loved one dies in a completely random car accident. Nobody could possibly be blamed. Is it more comforting to know the accident happened because of bad luck, or is it better to think that the accident could have been prevented by an omnipotent being that could have stepped in and saved them from an untimely death, but your God decided just to let them die? First, no matter what, it sucks to lose someone you love. Just flat out. It's a terrible experience. It hurts. Also, you're leaving out a third option. Okay? The third option is God has a purpose for the loss and promises to use all things for His glory and for the good of those who love Him and are called according to His purpose, which is what Romans 8:28 says. Now, if you're going to talk about the God of the Bible, you've got to go based on what the Bible says about that God. And that's what the Bible says, is that God uses it for good, for His glory, and it's not a waste, and it's not out of hate. It's everything God does is out of love. I've been wanting to post something about this for a while. God's blessing and God's wrath are two sides of one coin called love. They go together hand in hand. I personally find the third option to be the best. The first option wastes life by bad luck. It's a waste of life. The second option is an image of a God who is hateful or at best careless and unbiblical. And the third option is a biblical view of the biblical God and what the Bible has to say about it. So that's I think that third option, that good comes out of bad, I think that's the best option. You say as an atheist, you don't have to be frustrated thinking, was it because I didn't pray enough? Was God mad at me or them? Maybe I should have prayed more. Atheists take comfort in knowing there is no plan. Christians don't have to be frustrated thinking about those things either, because the Bible tells us all about hard times, why they happen, and who's to blame. So that's not something that Christians need to worry themselves about. They may. It's just not something they need to. You said atheists, or you said you, being the atheists, have the power to accept people for what they are, and are enabling you for what they are, enabling you to enjoy their quirks rather than chastise them for being unique. Atheists can have relationships with people who have alternative lifestyles without feeling like they have to save them from some deity that is going to condemn them for being themselves. You know, atheists really don't seem to like Christians and accept them for who they are. So that's kind of weird. It's really funny. The people who preach tolerance, we must be tolerant of all people, are really intolerant of the intolerant. It just seems weird. But anyways, Christianity teaches pretty much the same thing, that we should love everyone. It's God's job to decide their fates and all those things, and to cast judgment and condemnation on them. It's not ours. Luke 6 verses 27 through 38 hit on this a lot. It talks about loving your enemies. Anybody can love their friends is what it's talking about, but anybody can love their friends, but it's, we're to love our enemies more. Not necessarily more, but also. So go check that out. That's a good verse, and it even gets down there into talking about judging. You can go to BibleGateway.com and search that. Luke 6, 27 through 38. Next point, people don't go to hell for being true to themselves. People go to hell because they don't want a personal relationship with God. That's not my call. That's not my decision. That's what the Bible teaches. Those who want a personal relationship with God get it, and get what they want when they die. People who want a personal relationship with God get what they want when they die. People who don't want a personal relationship with God get what they want when they die. And when you die, if you don't want a relationship with God, He's going to give you the furthest thing from a relationship with Him. And if you want a relationship with Him, when you die, you will have the closest possible relationship with Him that you can have. People don't want, side note, hell is not is not a place to punish people. That's not why it was made. Hell was not made to punish people, but that's another talk for another time. That's a whole other thing. Atheists raise free-thinking children, letting them pick a religion or none. What would you have picked? Why not teach them all about religions and tell them why you believe the one you do, and then let them choose? That's a great point. I mean, I'll give you one for that. That's a good point. And it's something that Christians should do, is teach all points and why we believe what we believe. And at some point there comes a time where that child does grow up and go, well, I either choose this or not. As you can probably see, there's a lot of atheists who used to be Christians. And so you see that there are a lot of people who are free to make their own decision in the Christian belief. However, I don't think Christians always raise free thinkers. And I don't think atheists always raise free thinkers. There's no way that every atheist does the same thing all the time. There's no way that every atheist teaches free thinking. It may be by their words, calling Christianity stupid, or by their actions and the way they treat those who believe or talk about those who believe. It could be one or the other. And so just because you tell them you're free to pick what you want, you've also got to watch yourself, because if you are going around talking bad about other religions, of course your child's going to pick up on that and have some objections to other religions. There are Christians who abandon their children when they reject Christianity, which isn't scriptural. The Bible is very clear on multiple occasions that the goal is love. We are called to love. However, I know pastors of very big churches who have children who have rejected Christianity, but the families have not stopped loving their children, nor have they abandoned them. So some Christians do right, some Christians do wrong. Some atheists do good, some atheists don't. What you said about atheists is equally true about Christians. Christians love their children no matter what belief they are drawn to. Atheists do good things not because they have to, but because they want to. You said atheists do good things not because they have to, but because they want to. This is true for Christians too. I just got done making breakfast for my parents this morning. I made them eggs. I made my mom some lunch to take with her. I didn't have to do that. I could have stayed in bed. Actually, I've got a weird sleep pattern, so I could have gone to bed. But I wanted to do that. I enjoy blessing them and doing good things for them. I enjoy helping out other people. Christians don't have to. Christians want to. Now, with that said, we don't always do things, and we don't have to do things because we have to, or because God calls us to. We can do things because we want to, and our good deeds do please God, but we don't always have to do those good deeds, if that makes sense. Christians don't simply do things to please God, but their good deeds do please God. You said atheists can give money to organizations that do good things and pick freely and don't have to tithe. Christians can give money to organizations that make a difference, just like atheists can. We also get to tithe. So we can help multiple organizations and we can tithe. So you can only do one. And to assume that it is done, to assume that it doesn't do much good simply because it's a church is very obviously not based on real merit or study, but is instead on personal opinion. I'll be honest, there's some churches that do an amazing job, and they get a lot of good things done and love on a lot of people, and there's a lot of churches that don't. And so that's just the honest truth. There's churches that fulfill the mission, and there's churches that don't. And but that doesn't mean, simply because it's tithed to a church doesn't mean it's wasted. Next, you say atheists know the true meaning of forgiveness and love. How do you know Christians don't if you aren't a Christian? If you aren't a Christian, how do you know Christians don't know the real meaning of forgiveness and love? I've heard a lot of atheists talk about Christians being arrogant, but that was one pretty arrogant statement from an atheist right there. Atheists don't know. You said atheists know that forgiveness and love are not mandated by a God. You don't know that. I just got done watching a video earlier of a guy who was talking to a group of people, and he said, out of all the knowledge, all the facts, all the information that has ever been and ever will be, or is all available, out of all the facts that you can ever do, even if you just got one encyclopedia set, out of that entire encyclopedia, how much of that information do you know? At best, you know about 5% of the information in an encyclopedia. In all the information that there is to know, possibly to ever find, all the facts that are ever out there, all that information clumped together, you're doing good to know 1% of everything about everything. Just 1%. And in that 95% of things that you don't know, maybe one of the things in that 95% is that God mandated forgiveness and love. And there's that good chance. If you only know 5% of everything, there's a 95% chance that in that 90, there's a chance that in that 95% of things you don't know, one of those things is that God mandated forgiveness and love. So you don't know that. You believe that by faith. Now, see, you're a person of faith, and I am a person of faith. We are people of faith. All right, so you take by faith that God isn't mandated, that forgiveness and love isn't mandated by God because